Hi. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through what I call the healing pyramid. It's the information I wish I would have known 10 years ago and before I'd spent over $100,000 on my own health. I'm going to share that with you today. I'm going to share you all of the steps and how I've gone from someone who is really sick to a much, much better place. So the healing pyramid is really something, it's a framework that I've put together in order to crystallize all of the things that I've learned over the past 10 years and my own battles with things like mast cell activation, nervous system issues, SIBO, candida, toxic metals, and I want to share them with you to make it a little bit easier. Again, I'm not a doctor. This is something that I've put together on my own based on the work I've done with practitioners, whether it's functional medical doctors, specialists, whether it's naturopaths, dietitians, and you name it. So what you can see on the screen is really the pyramid itself, and I'm going to walk you through each of the components. It may look a little bit overwhelming to start, but I will take you through step by step. So in the middle of the diagram here, you can see that there is an actual pyramid with four different components, four different levels or tiers, if you will, as well as kind of a horseshoe or half moon around the outside. And I'll walk through each of these in order. So the way that I look at it and the way that I learned about it as I went through my own health journey is I tried to do way too many things all at the same time at the very beginning, and it really stalled a lot of my healing. I also found out through trial and error or just learning different pieces that there are certain components that you really want to do before others. Now, keep in mind, everyone, it is individual. You're healing the way your body works and even the situation you're in. And so your story might be slightly different than mine, and that's okay. I'm going to give you the framework and how you use it. There's a few different ways you can go about that. So when I look at the first tier, and there's four items at the bottom, any of these can be done in any order or all at the same time. Really, the goal is to stabilize your health and get you in a spot that you can really start to heal and add in other things. When I was in this phase, I was triggered by food, the environment, and a whole bunch of things that I didn't even know I was actually being triggered by. And so really the intent here is how do you remove, how do you calm yourself down and get to a place where you can actually heal? So the first item that's in here, and for me was a really big one, was actually the environment. And I didn't know how much the environment was actually having an impact on me. So things like mold and just everyday toxins are all over the place. In the products that you use, in the environment. And so really understanding that, all of the pieces that you're either cooking with or the containers and any of the health products that you're using, you have to be really mindful of this. As I started to remove those out of my daily life, your kind of tolerance to being able to handle things just goes up and things get better a lot quicker. A second item in here is around the low trigger diet, and the wording in here is specific, low trigger. And so each person is individual in terms of what their triggers might be. For some people, it may need to be a low histamine diet. In other cases, it might need to be a low FODMAP diet. Regardless of what it is, kind of understanding the diet or the eating that's right for you. I started out with an elimination diet, and so kind of starting with a few foods that I know I could tolerate, that I felt a little bit better with, and added on and changed from there. But for everyone, it's going to be a little bit different. Next up is calming the immune system. So for a lot of folks, if they are unwell or they've been unwell for a long time, it could be things like histamine and mast cells activating and really just going haywire. And that was the case for me. I had thought it was actually gut issues that were being the root cause. It ended up being more mast cell, nervous system, and other things going on at the same time. For me, I had to calm the mast cells. I was consistently in fight or flight, and that really didn't help me in healing, and I needed to calm down before I could do anything else. Lastly, the stress and emotional side of things, really getting that under control. And for folks that maybe have been dealing with health issues for a long time, stress plays a big piece, whether it's from work, whether it's family, whether it's past scenarios and trauma, really getting a handle on that. Until you get that under control, it's really hard to do all of the other pieces. So that's really the stabilization side of things, and getting to a point where if you can do these things, you can start to add on the other building blocks and look to the next sections. Now I'm going to pause there on the tiers and actually go around the outside. There are a number of things that can be helpful to add in here and to look at and just get an understanding of you and how it works for you. And so I did things like gut testing, whether it's stool testing, whether it's the GI map testing, which I think is great and great tools, onto lab testing. But beyond that, even just tracking your own symptoms, having a symptom tracker or a diary or journal to understand, what's going on in your life, what triggered, and the so what and symptoms of that. And I think it's great to be able to track that, and it definitely helps. Things like wearables, I do have a watch that will track my heart rate variability or HRV, but also things like sleep and my activity, and how do all of those things impact my health. And so I would suggest highly looking into things like that if you don't already have it. And then really just looking at your personal responses. And so things, how it's actually impacting you, and really getting in tune with when you are triggered, maybe what triggered you, or how do you feel when that's going on. And that's going to be an iterative process, and you're going to continue to test and look at and evaluate over and over again through the course of your healing. Jumping back into the second tier, and for me, I started trying to jump into tier 2 way too quickly. I was doing a lot of things all at the same time, and it was just overwhelming my body. And so for me, recommendation would be is really start to stabilize, get to a place where you're not triggered all the time, you're not triggered daily, and you can start to add in some of these other things. The first item that's in here, and again, none of these are really necessarily in order within the tiers. It's really meant to act as a guide of things that you can take a look at, take steps to improve and continue on. So the first one for me, and it was something that I didn't really know a lot about, was nervous system work. And so in your body, your nervous system, really that's what's going to trigger fight or flight and rest and digest. And you really want to get into rest and digest more often. But if your body is inflamed, if you've got certain things going on, your nervous system really can't calm down. And so doing work on that, and there's lots of techniques out there to help with that. Sleep, and what I would say in this tier is really more around the baseline of sleep. And so getting your sleep habits down, doing things a little better, and actually trying to get sleep. That can be very tough for some individuals. I know it was for myself. I would continually wake up somewhere between 1 and 3 p.m. almost every single night, and I would never feel well rested. And so it's trying incrementally to do those things to get that sleep, just so that you can start to heal. If you don't sleep and you don't sleep well, you're probably not going to heal. Hydration and electrolytes were something that when I looked at, I thought I was having lots of water, but the reality was I was getting water, maybe not the best quality water or fully clean water, and I wasn't actually getting electrolytes. And so I was actually dehydrated. And so understanding that it's not just the quantity of water that you're drinking, but also the minerals that you're getting in there in addition to the water itself. And getting good clean water, and tap water isn't necessarily always the best thing, especially depending on where you live. You may have chlorine or other items that are added to your water. Gentle movement is a non-negotiable in some ways. When I was sick, feeling unwell, I did find it really difficult to some days to even move. I really just wanted to sleep or lay around. And the big challenge with that is your lymphatic system doesn't actually have a pump in your body, similar to your circulatory system and with your heart. And so if you're not moving, the process in your body to get rid of the toxins and to move some of those items around in your lymphatic system really can't move without that movement. Don't underestimate walking as a form of movement, but there's lots of things out there to work on, but I do know it can be a challenge. In terms of detox and drainage, I did just talk about the lymphatic system, but it is getting all of the different pieces moving in your body so that you can flush out toxins or whatever else it is in your body that's causing issues. And so that's making sure you're having bowel movements. It's making sure you're sweating. Sweating is a fantastic way to get rid of some of the toxins or chemicals that may be in your body. Motility for most people is critical. And I know a lot of folks, as they get into a space of chronic illness, they may be more constipated or have harder times having bowel movements. And getting that motility up is critical for you to heal. And so looking at the different ways to actually improve your motility. With the last few things, they actually ladder up into potentially having issues with an imbalance in microbes or germs or bacteria in your gut or in your body. And so being able to defend your body, to be able to heal, to be able to cleanse that, you need to make sure that motility and your detox, all of the other things are working, but you may need other herbs or medications in order to get rid of some of that if it is the microbial issues or bacteria that you're having. I know for me, one of the issues I had was nutrient deficiencies due to a host of other things like SIBO, like Candida, but even just genetics. And so understanding those things and being able to supplement where you are low. This is where some of the lab testing or gut testing can be really helpful to understand where you may be struggling. And last but not least is supportive nutrition. And what I mean by that is making sure you're finding the right foods for you that work for you, that aren't triggering you, but are still giving you enough of the nutrients. When I was in this phase of my healing, I had a very strict diet. I wasn't eating a lot of different foods. And I know for a lot of you, it's probably similar where you feel that there's only a certain number of foods that are your safe foods. And it's how do you start to add those things back in so you aren't at more deficiencies. I do want to comment in this tier, there's a component here that is really about understanding your own biology, however that may be. And so that may be genetics, or that may just be the way your body handles, processes, and functions. I do have a few other videos related to dirty genes and genetics that can help you out. But that is a piece for a lot of folks that is maybe misunderstood or not understood very well. A lot of these items here are pretty generic in terms of nervous system, sleep, and so it doesn't really get into what you need personally, just what everyone needs. There are pieces related to your biology or genetics that are critically important for you, especially from a nutrient side of things. And so you may have a deficiency or a gene mutation related to COMT as an example, which for that you may not be able to move or remove some of the things like dopamine. They stay in your body a little bit longer. It makes it harder from a methylation perspective. And so understanding those keys to your body can really move the needle. As we move up into the next tier, into the rebuild tier, this is really where you start to get out of the fight or flight, where you truly are starting to heal. You can feel better. You have a little bit more energy, and then you can really start to tweak things, dial them in, and get to a place where you're feeling a lot better. One piece that I didn't realize and I didn't know as I was going through my journey is what mitochondria were. And for those folks out there that may be in a similar spot, it really is the powerhouse of your body. It creates the energy. It creates what's called ATP, which is your body uses for energy. And so there's a lot of things that you can start to do in order to help improve that, heal that, and really just make them function better. This is where I started to look at how do I really do better with sleep and get into that deep sleep phase. Within your sleep overnight, you can have the light sleep, you can have deep sleep and REM, and you need all of them. And what I was seeing through my wearables is for a very long time, I was struggling to get into deep sleep and get enough REM sleep. And so with that, I really wasn't feeling well rested. I wasn't improving as fast as I was hoping. Now, it might seem a little strange that gut repair and the gut lining is up in the third tier. And the reason I put it up there is I'd spent a lot of time earlier on in my healing journey to restore the gut lining, to try and fix that, especially with things like leaky gut. And for me, because I was dealing with a lot of the other issues, and whether it was toxins or heavy metals or bacterial overgrowth, I was trying to do that at the same time as either killing them or improving my detox, and I found that I was just spending a lot of money on that, on trying to repair and heal my gut lining, really when it was a little bit too early in my process. And for you, it may be earlier on, but for me, it wasn't. It was something that helped a little bit more later on. I talked a little bit about genetics in the last tier, but really for me, as I started to dial things in, the targeted genetics and understanding my genetics were really helpful. There's, a few pieces of my genes that I needed to understand how it helped or handled methylation, as well as a number of other enzymes and the way that my body worked. And so getting that, it is a little bit more complicated. There are great ways that you can find out your genetics. And I would suggest to anyone that really wants to improve and heal, that's something that you do need to look into, because it was something that even my doctors and functional medical doctors and naturopaths had never really talked about. And so some of the protocols that they gave me actually kind of flew in the face of what my genetics would say. And so once I started to tweak that, I actually found that I started healing faster. As you do start to feel a little bit better, it is critical for you to start to build your strength and your muscle again. I know for myself, someone that played a lot of sports in the past and had to give a lot of that up, as I was feeling less healthy, starting to then build my muscle back again, knowing that I did lose quite a bit of it. It really just helps in a lot of the other process, even dealing with glucose or sugar. It's something that having more muscles really helps out with. And so as you can start to do that, it's a great thing to do. And again, last but not least is the reintroduction and really just looking at your diet. And I use the term therapeutic, and it's really finding a way to reintroduce the things that you like. For me, in this phase, it really added the most to my quality of life, being able to take a look at the foods that I could add back to my diet and trying things. I found that my mood and really just the way my outlook on life improved, being able to actually enjoy things again. And if my friends or family were going out or having other food, being able to actually participate was a major win for me. And where I'm at right now is I can pretty much eat whatever I want within moderation. And when I look back to where I started and I had about 6 to 8 safe foods, it is night and day. And so that's a really, really nice change. As you get past or into this third tier and kind of rebuilding and moving on to the next one, it really is just optimization and a way to, when I say maintain, it's really what else can you do for the long term, knowing that you don't necessarily want to go back to where you started from or where you might be right now. And so it's how do you continue to train and improve and build that performance, both from a strength perspective, but just from your overall body. I have added quite a bit back to my diet, and I can be a lot more flexible, again within moderation. But do I enjoy desserts from time to time? Absolutely. And so it's adding those things in and being able to see how my body responds to that. And then the last item that's on here is really about resilience, and it goes back to the nervous system. It goes back to stress response and really being able to understand what your body can handle, sensing how it's feeling. And as you get a little bit more stress or you start to have anxiety, taking a look at all of the things that you've added back in, and maybe taking a step back, maybe looking at it and going back to tier 2 and looking at those items that you've done and say, how do I continue to do a little bit more for my nervous system? Or look back at sleep. Am I getting enough electrolytes and a balance in there so I can actually have hydration? So that is the healing pyramid as I see it. Hopefully it gives you a general sense of what these things look like and the steps that I took in order to go from someone that was almost bedridden, was really struggling day to day, to someone that is back to being able to enjoy life, doing the things I do, traveling, being involved in kids' activities and other things. And so with that, I will break each of these down into more detail to give the information to everyone in terms of what were the specific items that I did in each of these sections in order to help heal. Hopefully this video was valuable. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. Subscribe if that feels right to you, and I will continue to put out new content that hopefully helps.